Hey, hey everybody, Carl One here. I should have done some of the video yesterday when Tim Cahill was here and we were tearing down a motor that he bought used, and it's going to go in his own car, or Frank Cahill's, his cousin's F-body, LT1 F-body, and he just wanted me to tear it apart. He and I both tore it apart yesterday, and just to look at the condition of it to make sure the oil pump was right. It had a high volume oil pump. It actually did. He knew it did, and we verified that, so we're going to put in a high pressure standard volume pump. We wanted to make sure it had a windage tray. It didn't. I wanted to go over a few of the things that I found. This was professionally built, and it's not a put down on any professional builder, because I do it my way and everybody else does it their way. So what do we have? So the things I found were pretty simple, but I think they're worth talking about and changing. First of all, when we got, this was just a short block. It had no heads and cam on it. Those have already been worked. They're AFR heads, and Lloyd Elliott has already checked them out and put new springs on them. This engine started off with a mechanical roller, and it was built for a mechanical roller, so it had a bigger, longer duration camshaft. And they did a good job here, because if you have traditional mechanical roller lifters, the link bar will hit right here. So they just machined this boss down so that the link bar could hit, and they could use traditional short mechanical roller lifters. And otherwise, you don't have to do that if you get 0.3 inch taller mechanical roller lifters. Well, what they had were some crane. That's what some people do. Okay. That's no biggie right there. But so taking the rods and pistons out, I wanted to check things first. So I wanted to check, well, bearings. I wanted to check, by turning the whole rotating assembly, was it tight? Did it feel good? And it barely turned. It wasn't seized, but to me, it took a lot of, maybe 80 foot-pounds of turning pressure. So that's tight rings, or is it tight bearings? You don't know until you kind of take it apart. So maybe I'll save it to the end what it was. Well, the very first thing what I do is I feel the rods when they're, even before I unbolt them, and I wiggle them between each other, and they should be able to wiggle when it's on the crank. Sorry, I didn't show you when I was doing it. So when they're here on bolted up, you should be able to wiggle them pretty easily. So here at 7 and 8, number 7 wasn't wiggling so good. It's like, okay, well, sometimes people put them in backwards. It wasn't put in backwards. So anyway, that was the first one I took out. The very first one I took out. Okay, so let me get a glove. Here's number 7. Okay, here's number 7. Very first one I took out. First of all, I saw this black. They're diamond pistons, and I've never seen a black coating. It looked like a spray painted black, but whatever. Anyway, the pin is tight on this one. It does not move. In the piston, it does, so it floats in the piston. It doesn't move on the rod. There we go. There's a little bit of movement now. I freed it up. But it's not, it is spinning a little while I hold it here on with my finger, but not so good. It's tight. It's an Eagle rod, and a professional shop would always pin fit these, because when I get a set of Eagle rods, probably 4 of them out of the set of 8 will be tight on the pin. And so I have to hone that a little bit so that the pin is looser fitting. That explains why when it's on the crank, it doesn't move like that very well. So that will cause binding. The bearings looked okay. They're okay. The rest of them were fine. The very first one, well, because it had the indication. Anyway, that's the only one. The rest of them were fine. The other thing we found, it's old school rings. The 3/16, 1/16 ring pack. These rings are so much tension. That was what was causing, without, the rotating assembly free spinning was tight in my opinion. And, that's how they make them in the old days. And nowadays it's thinner rings and a lot less drag. You could elect to keep this piston pack. It's just going to be all natural. These are flat top, and there's nothing special to them. They're not any thicker in the crown, not at all. So I wouldn't call them nitrous pistons. You can use a set of the Molly brand for a 383 stroker 6-inch rod, 1.125 compression height. You can use that set where the rings are only 1 millimeter rings and they're real close to the top. You can use those for a good tune-up of 200 horsepower nitrous. You definitely can. So we decided we're going to order a set of those Molly pistons, and then have Todd Connick rebalance the crankshaft. The bearings this was run on the dyno only, and it needs a little polish. There was maybe the initial dirt and I don't know, it's, like the rings dragging. So I'm going to have Todd Connick polish and then rebalance it when we get the pistons. So the other thing, I found really nice coated cam bearings. It's a shame because I'm not a fan. I put them in where the oil hole is pointing over here toward the oil filter, except for the very rear one that has to point at 12 o'clock straight up. And the front one, these two holes need to point over here, 1 and 5 o'clock. They're over here at 11 and 7 o'clock. Everyone has their own way to do it. But anyway, those will have to be popped out anyway after this gets worked, because I'm going to have a torque plate hone on this. Even though the cylinders look really good, I'm going to have it torque plate honed to make sure it's still round. And I'm going to have the deck just square decked where the minimum, where it makes it square, because this was probably fine. It ran on the dyno though, so it may have tweaked. You just don't know. The other thing is they didn't make this oil hole bigger in the rear main, and if you don't do that, the performance bearing's not going to line up with it, and it's going to be like a little bit of a restriction. The other thing is they run a big old high volume oil pump. So it was a M55 high volume. And I am not a fan at all unless you've got external coolers. You have to, let's say, feed something externally and you need more volume on your oil pump. But on a all natural or even a nitrous motor without external cooling, external lines going other places, you don't need that, and it's not very useful at all. The oil pan is a Canton oil pan. It's got integral, built-in screen here to help keep oil from coming back onto the crank. It does not. It has the standard open sump back there, right? There's no windage for the sump where the oil pump is. It didn't come with a stock windage tray, which will cover that open area. And I'm not a big fan at all of deleting the stock oil windage tray. If you think you have windage trays in your pan, those windage trays never work well enough to cover up the sump area where the oil pump would be, and the crank and rods are throwing air at your oil and whipping it up there and giving you air-oil mix. So the simple thing is you just put a stock windage tray on. The simple fix. I already donated one to him right here. I just got this from Takeout. Stock windage tray needs to go on. The reason people don't do it, other engine builders, they'll get a windage tray, a stud kit if they're doing caps, and it won't come with the windage tray bolts. Well, just bite the bullet and buy some longer ones. So this is going to get windage tray stock. There's plenty of good things about this motor, but the other thing is they put in, the EFI connection, reluctor and cam sensor, right? But I have done this in the past and not known that the pin was too long, and that gouge right there is the pin, the cam pin. An LT1 cam pin is a little bit too long, so it has to be shortened so it doesn't bottom out on this and bind and cause oil. This had aluminum all in the front there, and I wanted to check that. That's the first thing we actually checked, and I had a hunch. Also, the reluctor was not in a line with the hole in the timing cover. It was a little far forward. It wasn't exactly centered. The hole in the timing cover for, what am I talking about here? The hole in the timing cover for the crank sensor. So if you look down there, it was a little far, forward, and it wasn't centered. So we'll have to deal with that by machining this, the face of the crank sprocket, and I think it only needs 0.06 thou to make it center up better. It wasn't that bad. This is the old school one where you had to be perfectly centered, because Mike Noonan has made a second generation or third generation where it's thicker here and it's more forgiving. But this is what came with the motor, and this sensor is what came with it, and that's why they're going to, hopefully it's the proper sensor. But anyway, that's why I'm going to have this machine. I'm going to have this rebalanced and polished. Going to make sure it's centered, all the crank sensor centered. The cam is going to be swapped out. This is the cam. Okay, see, it has the normal length cam pin, but that's too long. It needs to be shortened so that if you were doing this, you'd pull it, grind it down, push it back in, or you can grind it down while it's outside of the engine and make sure it's all clean. It's a nice billet camshaft for a mechanical roller, pretty good lift, like a 650 lift, but he's not going with that. He's going with a Lloyd Elliott spec cam for hydraulic, for street hydraulic cam with hydraulic lifters. So what else can I nitpick on this? Nothing else. I think they did a good job. Well, you never know. Did they do an align home when they put the studs on here for the stock caps? This is either a Corvette block or one of those where you have a warranty, and GM will send a 4-bolt for a warranty block. So it's hard to say if it was a Corvette block or not. Anyway, it's 4-bolt. Maybe it was align honed, maybe not. So I'm going to have that checked by Johnny Hurd, and I'm going to have the deck checked, and I'm going to have it torque plate honed again to make sure it will be 40-30. Maybe it'll be 40-30 with 1 thou extra clearance. That's no biggie. New pistons. Then put it all back together. There's the caps. So this is the K-Hall Performance Transmissions engine. We already have, we got new hydraulic lifters. We have head bolts, the AFR heads. They're the 195 intake runner heads. New cam from Lloyd Elliott. Put this all back together. Hopefully within a month it'll be back together, and hopefully it'll be on the dyno. Jim Morgan International's dyno has been down for a while, and so hopefully it'll be back in service and we can dyno this and see if it makes 550 horsepower or more. Stick with me on this. I don't know what to call this engine yet. Give me some suggestions if you would. Carl Elwine Engines. Take care.